Women's rights. Advancement in women's rights. Women's rights are human rights, the right of women, girls, and privileges in many societies around the world. These rights include the freedom from violence and prejudice. What are we fighting for? Women's suffrage, sexual and reproductive rights, freedom of movement.
Afghanistan women's inequality problems. When the Taliban occupied Afghanistan capital Kabul in 1996, they intend to turn the country into pure Islam state. There are strict religion rules as well as harsh fines. Women in Afghanistan are excluded from Taliban political, watching TV and listening to music. Girls were only allowed to attend school until the age of 10, unable to work due to unemployment, health, and women who violate the women's health rule will be severely punished,
including insults or insult in public. Their parents were stoned to death. Although some Taliban parents have agreed to allow girls to attend elementary school as a result of community pressure, the Taliban continues to brutally attack girls' schools. This is clearly misogynist and anti-gender equality. Although the Taliban claims to give equal rights to all Afghans, this must be a right that has a religious basis. Later in 2001, when the United States and the United Kingdom joined forces to fight the Taliban, they bombed Taliban bases across the country until its effort, causing the Afghan women to open their eyes. Employed or well-known Malala Joya, when at 27 years old, writer and activist, when she was elected the youngest member of parliament in the Afghan National Assembly in 2005, Sameh Hassan, the graffiti artist, is married to Khalida Popov, a footballer and captain of the women's national soccer team.
She teaches drawing at University of Kabul, and there are many works of art on display in the streets of Kabul, including Jamila, Afghanistan's first female police commissioner, and Latifa, Afghanistan's first female Air Force pilot. This is military of the country's struggling female population. Meanwhile, other activities such as policewoman Malalai, rapper Paradise Solar, and footballer Khalida have met with unsatisfactory endings.
However, Afghan women in Kabul are treated better than in any other Afghan city. They have educational and work opportunities, personal freedom, acceptance, and rules outside their home. Kabul is a relatively liberal city in contrast to the more conservative rural areas.
But work life is still full of stress. The Afghan women's movement works to create a more egalitarian social structure. due to the ongoing armed conflict in Afghanistan from the European feminist movement in the 1970s. Women face economic instability and uncertainty over the country's future. Since it is an unsafe area, their fight is absolutely necessary. The story of the repressions of Afghan women has captured the attention of the world, and it has become an issue that women around the world must be aware of.
First, women's suffrage. Second, sexual and reproductive rights. Third, freedom of movement. Fourth, intersectional feminism. Fifth, sexual violence and harassment. Sixth, gender-based violence. 7. Workplace discrimination. Finally, discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity.
When does the game begin? During the 19th and early 20th century, there was a women voting movement. There is a development of women in some parts of the world that find it difficult to exercise their right to vote. Women are forbidden from participating in politics in Syria, for example, not to mention the ongoing peace process. The fact is that vote to protected by law in Pakistan. However, women are still prohibited from voting in some areas because important members of the community use local tradition prevent women come vote in polling stations.
Syria, despite such advances, they are placed in the world where women find it difficult to exercise their rights. In Syria, for example, women are excluded from political participation, including the ongoing peace process.
Pakistan, despite the fact that voting is a constitutionally protected right in Pakistan, women are nonetheless barred from voting in some locations because the community is powerful people use the local custom and tradition preventing women from voting in polling places.
Sexual and reproductive rights are guaranteed to all women and girls. This includes the right to equal access to healthcare services, such as contraception and safe abortion. A woman should not have to live in fear of gender-based violence, such as rape or other types of sexual abuse, while considering whether or not to marry. Abortion that is both safe and legal is still unavailable to many women and girls around the world. In many countries, those who are decided or need to abort a pregnancy must choose between living their life and going to prison.
Argentina. AI has worked with grassroots human rights activists in Argentina to amend the country's harsh anti-abortion legislation. However, despite tremendous progress, there are still women and girls who are hurt by the legal system. They are unable to make judgments regarding their own body. Korea. South Korea's constitutional court has ordered the government to eliminate domestic abortion offenses by the end of 2020, as well as order the country's formerly draconian abortion statute. Ireland and Northern Ireland. Criminal charges against abortion were recently dropped following decades of advocacy by AI and other rights organizations.
The right to travel means being able to go somewhere, but whenever necessary, not only in the country where you live, but also when you go abroad. However, many women face significant challenges in this area. They may not even be allowed to have their own passport without permission. Despite these challenges, change slowly being made. For example, in Saudi Arabia, a successful campaign has been launched to encourage women to drive after being banned from doing so for decades. Feminism is a belief in social, economic, and political and gender equality. Although most of the women were of the Western origin, but feminism is seen all over the world and represents institutions committed to women's rights.
In Western history, women were relegated to domestic life, while men were allowed to participate in public life. Women were denied the right to own property, study, and participate in public life in medieval Europe. They were still forced to cover their head in public in France. At the end of the 19th century, and a husband could still sell his wife in sections of Germany. Women could not vote or hold elective office in most of Europe and the United States until the early 20th century. Women were not allowed to conduct business without the presence of a male agent, whether it was their father, brother, husband, or even their own children.
The definition of a split is the complex, cumulative nature in which the effects of various forms of discrimination combine, overlap, or intersect. This discrimination does not exist in a vacuum for those who embody different marginal identities. They often overlap with each other to create an experience of discrimination that is more than just the sum of its parts. But sometimes it can be difficult when we consider that words have different meanings for different people and in different contexts. So today we're going to detail where it all started, how are these words used today, and why is this important to our work. Despite coining the term, Crenshaw is the first to concede that she isn't the first to articulate its meaning. She mentions women as far back as Anna J. Cooper, a 19th century black liberationist, as well as living legend, renowned political activist, philosopher, and author Angela Davis.
Any unwelcome sexual act or conduct is considered sexual harassment and violence. This can include rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment, among other things. It could be psychological or physical in nature. Sexual harassment is defined as unwanted and unwelcome sexual remarks, conduct, or behavior with the intent or effect of intimidating, embarrassing, hostile, demeaning, humiliating, or offensive behavior for the recipient.
The first step in the taking care of yourself as a survivor is likely that you will go through some distressing experience, many of which may be familiar to you and others that you may not have experienced before. An incident can happen when someone has traumatic experience that is often apparent, and this is the normal way of dealing with the brain. Taking yourself to a place where you will feel safe and comfortable, able to move from where you are and can also practice breathing techniques.
For example, try to slow down your breath at a comfortable pace by breathing in slowly through your mouth. Count to 4 and exhale slowly. Cover your mouth for a count of 7. Or perhaps holding something soft and soothing. This will help you focus your attention so that your breathing and perception have a chance to slow down. Or you may find it helpful to count 5 things you hear, touch, smell, see, and taste.
Because TBV is such a prevalent problem, numerous organizations and sectors, including the corporate sector, international agencies, governments, and NGOs such as UN Women, USAID, and Women for Women International are striving to address and prevent it. UN Women advocate for early intervention that focuses on promoting respectful and equal relationships between boys and girls through education. USAID promotes prevention through education,
as well as the need for improved assistance for GBV survivors. The Global Fund for Women, on the other hand, is financing more localized efforts, such as attempting to abolish GBV in the South Asian textile industry.
Women for Women International work to end gender-based violence by educating men and women about women's rights. We educate women on their rights so that they may speak up for themselves and other women in their community. Men must also be educated about women's rights and their role in safeguarding those rights, with including prevent GBV. This concept is based on the notion that women and men are equal partners who should collaborate to achieve gender equality. In Afghanistan, for example, only 6% of men had a positive view of
Women's role in family decision making at the start of our program, but after the course, 99% of participants had a positive perspective of women's participation in family decision making. After engaging in our program, males in the nation where we work are 20% more likely to share information with their community about the effect of violence against women. We must involve males so that they can be effective allies and start inclusive conversation about gender-based violence in their communities and among their peers. In order to avoid gender-based violence, we challenge you to start a dialogue about gender equality and violence against women. Now that you know more about it.
People all across the world are affected by gender-based violence. Gender-based violence affects women disproportionately. That is why a large number of groups are working to eliminate violence against women. According to the United Nations Population Fund, 1 out of every 3 women has been subjected to physical or sexual assault at some point in their lives. Emotional, financial, and verbal abuse are not included. Gender-based violence is frequently underreported despite its prevalence due to stigma and a lack of resources and support networks. GBV can affect anyone, regardless of where they live, their socioeconomic status, race, religions, sexual orientation, or gender identity. While women and girls are the most vulnerable to and victims of gender-based violence, boys, men, and sexual and gender minority are also victims. GBV has major physical, mental, financial, and social consequences. Sexualized violence, for example, can result in undesired pregnancy, unsafe abortion, STI transmission, as well as social isolation and melancholy. Because of the stigma of physical and psychological anguish caused by the assault, it might also inhibit survival from obtaining economic possibility.
The global prevalence of gender-based violence is partly due to structural gender equality, which disempower women, girls, and other minorities and silence their voice, allowing their natural human right to be taken away more easily. Lack of justice, a scarcity of available resources, or a lack of economic possibility or contribute to the survival dependent on the abuser, perpetuating the cycle of violence. For example, only approximately 2% of rapists in the United States are likely to be protected, while honor killing perpetrators around the world are rarely protected. As a result, violent groups and individuals can continue to abuse their power without fear of retaliation.
To discriminate against someone implies to treat them unfairly or unfairly for whatever reason. Discrimination can happen at school, at work, or in public places like a mall or subway station. Schoolmate, instructor, coach, co-worker, supervisor, and business owner can now discriminate against you.
The Equal Job Opportunity Commission EEOC is in charge of protecting you from employment discrimination based on your race, color, religion, sex, including pregnancy, gender identity, and sexual identity, national origin, disability, age, 40 or older, or genetic information. Other laws may protect you from discrimination in other settings, such as school. The EEOC is stated protect you from
discrimination in the workplace when it comes to unfair treatment based on race, color, religion, sex, or including the pregnancy, gender identity, and sexual orientation, national origin, disability, age, or genetic information. Harassment at work by your boss, co-worker, or other because of your race, color, religion, sex, national origin, handicap, age, or genetic information. Because of your religious views or handicap, you are denied a reasonable workplace modification. Inappropriate inquiry or disclosures of your genetic or medical information. Retaliation for filing a complaint regarding workplace discrimination or assisting with a workplace discrimination, investigation, or litigation. Gender discrimination and gender identity are similar to sexual orientation in that they are the result of two people wanting to understand each other. It's not about visible characteristics, but rather internal ones. Outsiders often regard such a behavior as strange or difficult to accept, and some may regard it as a serious offense. However, if everyone attempts to open up, they will realize that they are not wrong or different from you.
You will not be able to build a society that is free and equal until all people are free and equal. If women continue to be denied the same right as men, this disparity will continue to be an issue for everyone.
Gender equality and women and girl empowerment it is only a goal in and of itself, but it is also the key to long-term economic prosperity, freedom, and security. Everyone will benefit from a better society when women's rights are acknowledged and taken seriously.
If we all work together to support women's rights, we can make a difference. We will grow stronger by collaborating with individual activities on the ground and push for our own objective in the women's rights movement. AI can be at the forefront of the struggle.